We are live.
Hello.
We are live on the Let's Build a podcast. We're here with my new friend, Steven, he is the PodBrother, actually. He's known as the PodBrother, and he's got all kinds of comedy he likes to share with the people and all that. And as a matter of fact, just a few weeks ago, while I was on his podcast and we were talking about podcasting, this episode, actually, we're kind of partnering with the Owwll App, where you can connect, learn, and grow. Right? That's what you do on the Owwll podcast or on the Owwll App. And there's experts there on all kinds of different things. Steven's got comedy and podcasting. Some other people have social media that they talk about, wellness, marketing. I don't know. Help me out. There's so many different things that you can talk about on that app.
Yeah, life coach, health and fitness, nutrition, social media, music. There's all kinds of experts that are sharing all kinds of knowledge. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And we're just at the very, very beginning. I mean, we haven't even got started. This is the snowflake on the iceberg.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that, by the way. Yeah, it's just that, like you said, the snowflake on the iceberg, right? So how long have you been on the app?
I've been on about 1.5 years.
Okay.
I like when Jason calls me one of the Owwll OGs.
Okay.
I was on when we were in beta. I was on before the Android got on. I was on before we got.
Oh, did we lose Steven?
Yep.
There he is.
Somebody tried to call me, so I had to kick it. But yeah, I've been on for about 1.5 years, and I've been able to see a lot of evolution with the app and a lot of development and a lot of exciting aha moments. And I loved it from the very beginning. I've always been dialed into the internet since the birth of the internet. And when it first came out, I was like one of the first ones to grab an email before there was even an internet. Internet started off with emails only.
Okay.
And then it evolved into like a browser.
Sure.
And I remember you had to type in like 8,000 characters to even see the page open up. And then they invented domain names.
Yep.
And then Google all of a sudden like popped up in 1987, and you could search stuff.
Sure.
And here we are now. You're able to like use your phone to do business one-on-one with an entrepreneur that you would have never had a chance to meet any other way. And I find that incredibly amazing and fascinating. We're old enough, I'm not sure how old you are, but I'm old enough to have known the world as a mechanical means only.
Mm-hmm.
And then it evolved into an analog world, which evolved into a digital world, which evolved into a wireless world. I mean, when I was running around on the playground, there was no space debris.
Mm-hmm.
There was no junk in space. Space just had space in it. That's it.
Sure.
And the telephones were party lines on an analog copper wire, and you could listen to the neighbors talk about whatever. And
sure.
Now we got Dick Tracy phones.
Yes, we do.
We could, my 6th graders can reposition satellites off of the phone.
Yeah. Well, that's not too far from the truth. It's like you just referenced the Dick Tracy thing, and how much has art defined life? Typically we've heard it's the other way around, that life defines art. Well, how much has art, movies, kind of defined what we know as commonplace today?
Well, we have evolved to the point where those lines have blurred now, because
100%.
We have been the type of people and the type of culture that our life imitate art, but then at the same time we create life that art imitates. And sometimes that line gets blurred, and people they don't see where the line is drawn. They can't differentiate between, you, the comedian actor, and you, Steve Kimbrough, just being, an asshole making fun of somebody because you're a jerk. It's like, no, this is art. It's comedy, and I'm a nice guy. You know.
Yeah, for sure, 100%.
So yeah.
Okay, so you've been on for a while. Can you tell me, you've taken tons of calls, obviously. Can you tell me maybe one of your favorite types of calls that you've taken?
I had a call. I think his name is Batiste, and he's from Haiti, and he's writing a book, and he wants that book to someday be turned into a screenplay. So he called me up, super excited. He read my bio. He's like, I read your bio and your picture, and you look like you could be somebody that's my uncle. So I'm gonna call you Uncle Steve. So he's like, Uncle Steve, I got some questions. Take my book and I want to turn it into a screenplay. And I know you're a filmmaker, you write scripts, you're in the entertainment industry. Tell me what I need to do. Here's my book, here's my story, here's my scenario. And so I just ran down really quick within that little 10-minute window, how to identify your story, identify the characters, identify where the arc of the story is, have the characters develop. And then I basically took his story and I walked him through how to put that into a screenplay paradigm.
Wow.
And, with Act 1, introducing the characters, developing the characters. Act 2, Part 1, where you insert all the conflict in the drama. Act 2, Part 2, where you amplify all the old shits that the characters get into.
Sure.
Act 3, where all of those questions and all of those challenges have a resolve and they've been answered. And it's either a happy ending if it's a blockbuster American film, or it's a tragic ending if it's a European film.
Right. That's fantastic.
So he was so excited, so ecstatic. He called me back later. He said, I just have to tell you, I think you probably saved me years of trying to figure this out on my own, just with what you told me in those 10 minutes. And that made me feel like, that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
That was really cool.
Yeah.
Because, I probably did save him about 5 years of trying to figure out how to eventually turn his book into a screenplay.
Yeah.
And I gave him specific things of, if you're going to do a story, have that story be compelling and dynamic. And if you're going to make that story into a film, you have to understand the screenplay paradigm. And if it's not in that, it's not going to get made.
Sure.
It's going to get ground filed.
Sure. And that comes from your history, your experience in your background and that sort of thing. And like you're saying, you saved him years of time, whatever it might be. I can sort of relate to that. I've had some great calls in the short time that I've been. I'm probably 6 months into this, maybe 5 months, something like that. I don't exactly remember. Well, it's been since January. So yeah. I met Jason at PodFest in Orlando.
I was there, yeah.
Yeah, and we probably bumped into each other, but I had no idea,
Yeah, you look familiar.
Yeah.
I mean, other than from here.
Yeah.
That was an amazing experience. PodFest was awesome.
Oh, yeah, it was. I'll tell you, my wife and I went. My wife has a podcast, and my wife and I went, and we broke up and attacked workshops, divide and conquer kind of thing. And there was, by the end of the day, there was so much to unpack. We had all these notes. I took video of a lot of the things, because there's no way I'm going to remember all of this stuff, all of these things. So I had a little tripod with me, set up my phone, and I recorded some of the sessions so that I could come back to it, because there was so much, there's so much that to consume or whatever. But yeah, a little plug on PodFest there. We'll be there again next year.
I'm going as well. I actually was on the comedy panel.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah.
I
I
applied
was gonna
to
go
it.
to that one. Yeah, I was gonna go to that
It
one,
was
but
good. It was
yeah,
packed. There was only one. I was surprised. I thought there would be a lot more, but and I
yeah,
suggested there should be a lot more.
sure, sure. Well, I will see you at the next comedy.
Yes,
I'll go to
you'll
that
have to
one
come
because
to my comedy panel for sure.
100%, 100%. We're really looking forward to it this year because we'll be, we'll know people. Like I'll know you, we'll know you, and Mark Savant is going to be there. So I'll bump into him. I saw him last year, but he was like darting from place to place, and it's, just part of Podfest. You have to get from point A to point B really quick, to get
Right.
the most you can out of it or whatever. So, yeah, a little little promo on Podfest, I guess. So yeah, so it's been about 6 months or so since I've been on. But anyways, in the calls that I've taken too, people will call and they see that I talk about podcasting also, and I talk about social media and how those two can kind of work together, for growth and all that stuff, and really how you can enjoy it and not make it a chore, or like, I got to do this again, um, really how to streamline it and uh, do it efficiently, and people have called and talked to me and they've said kind of the same, like, oh my gosh, you've saved me so much time, you know, or that's not nearly as difficult as I thought it would be, you know. So, and same as you, I feel good about that. There's some people on the platform, and rightfully so. They have their price at $5 for 10 minutes or 20 or whatever. I've tried to keep mine right at one, just to be able to make it accessible to talk to people or whatever. You know, it's kind of to me, it's a little bit more about just making the connections. Like, you and I've made the connection. What a fantastic connection it is. So, uh, yeah, it's an overall good platform,
Yeah,
and
I
I'm
have a
glad.
sliding scale with my rates. Like when I just want to meet people and have people call me, I'll drop my rate down to a dollar
Yeah,
so that people be like, "Oh, Kimbrough's a dollar. Let's like reach out to him." And
yeah,
then when I know, like if I teach a comedy workshop and my students, they have to download the app,
sure.
and if they
Oh
want
yeah.
to pick my brain about writing and comedy, stand up, industry
Yep.
stuff, what to do, do's, don'ts, then I'll bump my app up to like $10, fifteen
Yep.
dollars, or whatever, and
Yeah.
then the extension will be like maybe another 15 or 20,
Sure.
because I'm doing the math on what my one-on-one sessions are. So
Yes.
my one-on-one session is $49 for a half hour.
Okay. Oh,
So
so you rate it.
so
Yeah.
so I rate it. So like if you get me for like, 20, 30 minutes, it's going to be about the same, maybe
Hmm.
$40, a little bit cheaper,
Yep.
because I want you to use the app versus buying a block or buying a session.
Right.
So I make it a little bit cheaper. So for about $30, you can get me for a half hour on the app, and it saves you like $20.
Yep. Yeah.
So then when I'm done with that session and I drop it back down to a buck, and then whoever wants to call me can call me, and if that person's on the app and can catch me for a buck, then they got
Hmm.
me for a buck.
Nice.
So
Nice.
so
Yeah, that's a great way of looking at that, to be able to fluctuate your rate, especially on mentorship Mondays.
yeah,
I On Mondays, mine is always a dollar. It's just, because that's kind of a big push for the new users and stuff like that. And us owls are now kind of the welcoming party,
yeah.
and just to welcome people in, and kind of lower the barrier of like, oh, what is this thing, and it's scary and all that. Nah, there's just a bunch of screwballs like me and you on there, and we're talking about what we know about.
But also too, the early days, which you missed. Sometimes nobody was on, and you could
Oh,
go on the app, and like Jason would be the only one available,
sure,
and then maybe there might be one other person,
sure.
and back then the longest they had was, I think, an hour.
Okay.
So they didn't have the 4-hour windows of availability that could populate the availability, because you always want to go on and see like an option of a lot of people that you can choose from. And when you go on and there's only 2 people, it
Yeah.
kind of feels like, where's everybody? There should
Yeah.
be more people on here. Maybe this isn't as cool as I thought it was.
Right.
And,
Right.
and you had to have some vision,
Mhm.
and you have to have the long game to know that,
Yeah.
okay, it's 1 or 2 now, but over time, as we
Mhm.
slowly, organically vet the proper people to get in here, and
Mhm.
they get it, and they start, putting some time and being available, then there's
Sure.
going to be more
Sure.
and it's cool to see the evolution of that when there was just 1 or 2 people on.
Yeah.
And now, anytime you go on, there's
Oh,
always like, 8, 9, 10 people. There's always a variety
yeah.
of people that you can tap into, and that's just going to grow.
Yeah. 100%. I go on the app, how many times I try to be live each day for a chunk of time. But when I go on, there's, like you said, 8, 10, 12, 15 people sometimes. Um, and it's like you said, it's that nice variety of topics that they'll cover. And even if someone's not live, you can request them to go live, and sometimes they'll jump to that. I've answered some requests, I don't know, a handful of them, 3 or 4 of them anyways. And so I kind of try to keep myself available for that stuff, and like, make the connections and create the friendships and stuff. So, and then be helpful, you know. So so we've covered the what's the best one. Now, what's the nightmare? What is the nightmare call you've had? Can you talk about that one?
Yeah. The nightmare call is, and sometimes I get this because I understand that you'll turn the app on, you forget you'll have it on, and
Mm.
then get into another task or another project or whatever.
Mhm.
So I try to keep my projects kind of desk oriented,
Mhm.
computer oriented, editing, or maybe I'm doing I'm working on a web page, or maybe I'm doing social media blast. I always try to keep my social media multitask to, if the phone does ring,
Mhm.
there's not going to be any background disruption, or
Yes.
it's not like you can clearly see I'm distracted and I'm not giving you 100% of my attention.
Mhm.
Um, I've called some people and they're in the gym working, and you hear the clanking and the weights, and you
Yeah.
hear the huffing and the puffing, and they're trying to like. It's like I'm paying, like, even
Mhm.
if it's $1, like
Yeah.
I'm paying you for your attention, your time, your expertise,
Right.
your focus. I want you to be in a place where you're not so distracted that if I ask you something, you can be like, huh,
Mhm.
okay, um, yeah. I want you to kind of do the math, create the formula, put it
Yes.
together, and be like, I think you should do this. I think you should do that. You're not
Yeah.
going to be able to do that when
Yeah. Yeah.
or you're working on changing a transmission.
Right. Right.
The
Right.
multitask is something that is not, an easy pull away.
Mhm.
And you should be able to have your phone ready to go. And if you want to work on something, sort papers, pull staplers, lick stamps, there's
Yeah.
1,000 things that you can do while you have your app on. But don't pick the one where you're doing your trapeze workout,
Yes.
and then you
Yes.
decide you want to, like, oh, let me turn my app on, see if I can get some calls. And then when someone
Yeah.
calls you, you're like, ah, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
working out, you're doing laps in the pool. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like, come on.
Yeah, exactly. When I go live, often I'm at my day job, not quite as much as anymore now as leading up to now, but I'd be on my day job and listening to podcasts, funny enough, as I work, and a call will come in. Well, I've figured out now how to turn the podcast off before you answer the call because you
Yeah.
can't do it the other way around.
Right.
Yeah, I ruined a call myself doing that. And I asked them if I could call them right back because something's not quite right on my end. Let me call you right back, and I didn't let them know that I was listening to a podcast at the time, but I don't have a good connection on my end. Can I call you right back? So,
Yeah, I mean, we all have had that, and that's also part of the learning curve because in the beginning,
oh yeah,
your phone is your phone, and you forget that you just signed up for a platform where you need to be an expert. There was
hmm
one time where I turned the app on right when I got up, and I start working my day, and I'm like, oh yeah, I got to take a shower, so I take the phone, put it in the bathroom, I jump in the shower, and the phone rings, and I'm thinking, okay, that's the normal phone rings when I'm in the shower. I
hmm
stick my hand out, be like, hey, what's up? And I see it's a Owwll call.
yeah,
And you hear the shower in the background. I'm all echoed. And I'm like, hey, I'm like, oh, yeah, hey, thanks for calling. How you turn the shower off and act like
yeah,
you're not taking a shower. They
yeah,
already
yeah,
know
yeah,
you're standing there wet and naked. And
yeah.
I was like, come on. I heard the
Oh,
shower in the background.
yeah.
It's like,
Well,
you can't act
what,
like you're sitting at your desk in a suit and tie working
right,
now.
right. Yeah. Well, here we are, I guess. Right. Oh my gosh. Okay, so yeah, we talked a little bit about Owl, and again, I'm thankful to be part of that whole. It's Owl Week that we're in right now, and throughout the week, different podcasters are kind of doing live things like like we're doing now. I've got some other lives coming up this week that I'm really excited about. Um, my specific podcast that I'm doing is about podcasting, and right, I know how many thousand of those are out there, right? But I'm trying to make mine a little bit different, right? I'm kind of a okay, let's just say it. I'm a cheap Charlie, really. I I don't mainly it comes from me not wanting to spend the family's money, you know.
Mhm.
I bring the money in for the most part, but it's not my money at the time, so I try to use as much as not much, as little as possible to accomplish my tasks, right? So with that in mind, I'm usually budget minded. I usually try to do things like on the cheap or the workaround or whatever it might be, because then I'm not using up my family's resources. I can't be the only one that does that, you know, and I know that you know podcasting is such a low barrier of entry to get your vision or your passion or whatever that is, your message, to get your message out, to uh, create your crowd or your posse or your tribe or whatever it is, because it's a way to connect with other people, you know. Um, so the point of my podcast then is to help people with those inexpensive ways of doing it, you know, or the attainable ways of doing things or whatever. And one of the easiest, best ways to start a podcast is on your phone, you know.
Mhm.
So that's kind of my shtick on what I'm doing. So I'd like to talk about your podcast. Like, how did it? What was the thinking in starting it? Like, how did it get started? Where is it now, and where would you like to go? If you could start kind of at the beginning, where did it all kind of come together?
Well, my first exposure to the podcast was probably in the early 2000s,
hmm
2003, 2004. I went to the Cannes Film Festival. I entered the Cannes 24-hour film challenge, and my
Nice.
film partner director was an early adapter of the podcast with the Apple iPods.
hmm
So back in the day, Apple created this little iPod that you could listen to your music on,
Yep.
and they had the brilliant idea, if anybody wanted to do a podcast and just get
hmm
on and just talk about stuff, they'll put it up on the platform.
Right.
And my partner had that, and he was literally one of the first guys to do a podcast, literally.
Okay.
And so I thought that was kind of cool and interesting and fascinating. So we went around Cannes and we were doing podcast stuff and doing interviews and interviewing filmmakers and throwing that up on the YouTube. And in the process of doing that, I thought, as a stand-up comic, this is kind of cool. This is another outlet for me to have a place where I can exercise more comedy, write and
Mhm.
perform more material. At the same time, one of the reasons I was going to Cannes is because I wanted to become a filmmaker and I wanted to be better at it, but I also wanted to network and make connections with international filmmakers on an A-list level. And you got to spend the money and go where they are. And the Cannes Film Festival is where the top of the food chain filmmakers are. You got to pay a lot of money to get there. You got to be vetted and qualified to get a badge. And it's a lot. It's a big, major investment. It's an effort. It's not an easy thing to get. But
Mhm.
I was able to get there, and I was able
Okay.
to do that.
Okay.
In the process of being at the Cannes Film Festival, I discovered the filmmaking was just about to get into 3D. And I thought,
Yeah.
wow, I've always loved 3D as a kid.
Mhm.
And I went to one of the panels in Cannes, and there was this big buzz about what's going to happen with 3D. And
Mhm.
James Cameron was talking about the movie Avatar, like even back then.
Mhm.
And I'm thinking, okay, if James Cameron is like, you know, at the Cannes Film Festival giving tips on, the world is moving into 3D, I need to like move into 3D.
Mhm.
So I took some courses, I took some workshops and some classes. I worked with some professionals, and I became a certified 3D stereographer. That's the person who sets up the cameras for the 3D shots.
Okay.
Because
Yep.
there is an exact science. Things have to be right. The disparity has to be
Mhm.
perfect, and the money that was being made in that was ridiculous. And I was
Mm.
like, okay, I got to be a stereographer. I want to
Mhm.
be a coordinator. That's what I want to do. So I came back from Cannes with this whole new kind of leaf on life to be a 3D coordinator. And being a comedian, I'm still working the clubs. I'm still doing the thing. So I did a spot at the John Lovitz Podcast Theater in Universal City Walk.
Mm.
And I saw that they didn't have 3D screens. They didn't have 3D cameras. I was like, wouldn't that be cool to have the first comedy club, the first 3D comedy club,
Mhm.
shooting stand-up in 3D?
Mhm.
Like, who's doing that? And
Right.
I'm kind of like on the same cutting edge as James Cameron, except on the comedy tip.
Sure. Sure.
So I pitched it to John Lovitz, and he's like, that would be awesome. Like, you know how to do all that? I go, yeah, I know how to do all that. So I brought my 3D cameras in, my 3D screens, my 3D monitors, and I was shooting 3D comedy at the
Mhm.
John Lovitz Podcast Theater. And I was just like, oh, podcast. My buddy was doing that a couple years ago.
Mhm.
It didn't really catch with me. I thought it was kind of cute and quirky, but
Mhm.
I didn't think that would be anything that would catch. And then here I am in the John Lovitz Podcast Theater, and he's doing live podcast shows with Kevin Smith, Adam Carolla, Frank and
Oh.
Heidi, like all these celebrities, and
Sure.
they're doing a podcast on stage, just sitting in front of a desk with a mic,
Mhm.
and they're streaming it out to 1 million people, and they're
Mhm.
subscribing at
Nice.
$3.95 a pop per month,
Wow.
and I'm just going, what?
Well,
I'm like, James Cameron and the Cannes Film Festival got me on the 3D tip. I'm now shooting podcasts in 3D at the
yeah.
John Lovitz and people are paying monthly memberships for
Mhm.
this.
Wow.
So John Lovitz was coined as the PodFather.
Mhm.
And so my last name being Kimbrough, me being a brother, I
Mhm.
I was nominated or coined the
Mhm.
PodBrother.
Perfect.
So John Lovitz was the PodBrother. I was the PodFather. I'm the PodBrother. So
Nice.
then I kind of shifted my energies into doing live podcast shows on the
Mm.
stage, so that I blended in right with these other celebrities in their podcast. The difference is I'm also a 3D coordinator, and I'm shooting my podcast in 3D.
Sure.
And in that process, my PodBrother brand started to actually get some traction.
Okay.
And then the internet and the world started to catch up with this podcast thing.
Mm-hmm.
Next thing you know, people are like, oh, wait a minute. The podcast, when I first started doing it, like, really? Kimbrough, the PodBrother?
Mm-hmm.
That's ridiculous. It's like, that's never going to take off. It's never going to, a podcast, like a radio on a little thing. Like, what? How does that even work? What does that even mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I just stuck with it. I just
Mm-hmm.
took the heat, took the kicks, took the punches, and I just got better and better. I upgraded my equipment. I got better mics. I got better cameras. I got better mixers, soundboards,
Mm-hmm.
some of the different programs and the software I learned. And then all of a sudden, streaming started to do the thing. I remember the first streaming platform was an 8-second strobe. And we lost our minds on it.
Oh, yeah.
We lost our minds. It was like, and you're sitting there talking, and then it'd be like,
Yeah.
and then it would like every 8 seconds, like the audio was continuous, but the
Yeah. Yeah.
But for us to be
That
like,
was-
let me get this straight. You
Yeah.
can have like an internet radio, and we can see you, even though it's an 8-second strobe. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And so then I was like, okay, I want to find out and learn more about the streaming thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just switched all my energy. So all these different technologies, being like a, like a nerd, like a black nerd, like a blurred, I was every little little digital, little trinket, little bling. I was just like, how's that work? He was like, podcasting, 3D, live stream. Is like, what next? We're going to be doing financial exchanges on this thing called the internet? Yeah, right. Really?
No, we would never do that.
Who's going to put their credit card down on
Nobody.
something? Nobody's going to do that. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
Out of your mind?
Yeah.
And then when
Little did we know. My gosh,
when I opened my comedy club in Manhattan, I was one of the only comedy clubs that had online ticketing.
Okay.
And that put me in there's an entertainment magazine called the Time Out.
Okay.
And Time Out magazine was like, Broadway shows and movies and fashion shows and theater and anything that was a celebrity, it was in Time Out magazine. Anything that was a big show was in Time Out magazine. And my comedy club was listed like right there in the comedy section because I had this this technology where you could buy tickets online. And so when I finally moved out here, the internet had finally evolved into the point to where I've gone through all these different phases and I learned all these different things. And now it's like the podcast, internet, e-commerce caught up with what I was kind of fantasizing about in my head. And so now I literally am what I imagined 20 years ago. I'm living in that fantasy. I have a podcast with my comedy brand. I'm a stand-up comedian. My stand-up comedy brand is PodBrother. That's how all my comedy world knows me. I have my own podcast network called PodBrother Nation, which is where these shows can be streamed on, and you can see my 40 years of comedy experience I have on the PodBrother Nation or the PNN Academy.org, where I can teach you how to do stand-up, and you can put your credit card down on it and pay me. So I went from a comedy club a brick and mortar to an online click and order, and then you think you're the man there, and then all of a sudden Jason pops out of nowhere and creates an app where people can put money on it, and they just call you. You don't even have to put your credit card in. It's already on it. And you got money already on it. So now you just pick up the phone, call me, I get cha-ching, and I give you a little spice of life, and I wake up in the morning, I got pillowcase money. It's
Yeah.
it's it's that's how it started for me. It started like me doing stand up back in the day,
Mhm.
interested in film, and
Mhm.
going to a film festival and just learning about the opportunities in this new digital world. And it led me to now being where I am, where I sit, with what I have,
Mhm.
talking with you on an app that we both think is amazing.
Mhm.
And to be honest with you, even without the monetary byproduct of this, just to
Mhm.
be able to meet you,
Oh, yeah.
create a professional relationship, that's worth hundreds of thousands of dollars.
It's yeah, absolutely. It's
We can't put
beyond
a
that.
price on that. It's
Yeah.
priceless, actually.
Exactly. That's what I was going to get to. And just backing up a tiny bit, that information that you convey to, the caller on the All app, they're paying $1, they're paying $15, but how much money is that saving them, or how much time is that saving them? It's that $1 or 5 or whatever that they paid to get that. That's minuscule compared to the big picture of the information that you're conveying to them, you
Mhm.
know. So yeah, it's a privilege to be part of the All app. It's a privilege for me. I edit the All podcast, and I work with Jason on stuff like that. It's a privilege to meet guys like you and make that connection, you know, that I would have never met you, you know. I would have never come across your path, or Paul Vato's path, or Will Baptiste's path, uh, Eric Allen, all these guys and ladies. Rebecca Norrington. Are you kidding
Yeah,
me?
yeah, she's awesome.
Wow. She gives me chills,
Yeah, she's awesome. Yeah,
She's an amazing human being. I've never would have come across the path of any of those folks if not for the Owwll App. So another plug for that.
yeah,
So
yeah. No,
okay,
it's
so
cool.
so where are you at now with your podcast? Like, what's kind of going on now? What's the next month or so? How is that looking for you? Uh,
Yeah, I
and
have.
what are your well also on that? And then what are your challenges right now?
Yeah, well, to answer the first part of that question, I've been in a technical handshake with the system that I put together. I
Okay.
basically have like four systems that I've basically spent the last 3 years just tweaking, figuring out, and trying to understand how I want to do it. So
Hmm.
I have the throw a mic, a mini mixer, a phone, and a tripod in my computer bag and run and do like the quick run and gun setup. And
Hmm.
let's take advantage of an opportunity right now in a matter of 4 seconds or
Love
a
that.
minute.
Yeah.
And then I have let me just swing this around. This is my portable mobile
Okay.
setup. I got my laptop, I got my iPad, I got my
Okay.
phone, I got my mini USB mixer, but I also have my multi four if I want to have more
Sure.
people.
Sure.
And I got a couple of mics,
Yeah.
and I also have a digital camera there,
Yep.
and I've got
Okay.
a mic stand and an extra set of headphones.
Yeah.
So this is kind of like my remote system for
Okay.
when I want to do, say, something a little bit more serious, a little bit more impressive, a little bit more professional,
Okay.
and I want it to look good, sound good. So this is kind of like the, you know, studio in the bag on a
Hmm.
cart to run and go. I get here, it takes me maybe 20 minutes to set up.
Sure.
So if I have an
Sure.
opportunity to cover a red carpet or a film festival or
Okay.
some sort of a really cool Hollywood event, I don't want to just go in there with your phone because you're not going to get in. Everybody has a phone that says,
Yeah.
"Oh, I'm an influencer. I'm a podcaster." It's like, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, here's my phone. It's like, nah. You come in with actual stuff. They'll
Hmm.
be like, okay, this is a professional. This person is serious, and this is the real deal. So yeah,
Sure.
we'll give you a badge. You come in, cover our filmmakers. So there's a section of my strategy that has to deal with creating more of a legitimate media professional
Hmm.
so I can have access to media access type events.
Hmm.
and I'm kind of a step above the run and gun phone influencer who
Mm-hmm.
is like, look at me, I have a phone, I'm a podcaster. And then
Right.
my home studio, that system, I have an 8-channel rolling video switcher.
Okay.
I have a 6-channel sound device 664, which I use
Okay.
to record the audio for film, because I also do audio film.
Yep.
And I'll wrap up the actors, and I got the boom and all that. So I use
Nice.
that recorder for my home system. So I got an 8-channel professional audio recorder,
Mm-hmm.
uh, an 8-channel video switcher that's hooked into monitors so I can see what's going out to the public. I also have a 4-channel splitter monitor so I can see where I want to go next. And
Okay.
then the whole studio set up with the green screen, and I've got a whole compositor,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's more of kind of a TV studio type
Sure.
set.
Yeah.
And I've spent years and money getting that all tweaked up.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm at the point where all my systems are dialed and tweaked. So
Okay.
now I'm looking to do more, because the idea for me is, let's say I want to do a podcast every hour on the hour, whether I'm at home, on the run, or just a quick run and gun. Am I
Mm-hmm.
set up to do that? And so then
Sure.
I looked into some of the online digital platforms like StreamYard,
Yep.
Boxcast, YouTube,
Yep.
um, LinkedIn. So I got
Yep.
all those digital online platforms. So no matter where I am, I can go live on this, I can go live on that. No matter what
Sure.
system I'm using, I can go live. So there's that digital handshake with
Mm-hmm.
all of my systems, no matter what I want to do, if I decide to go every day, all day long for, say, a
Sure.
week straight.
Sure.
So in my head, I was like, okay, if I wanted to do that, how would I set that up? And I just did that 30,000 view of my
Yeah.
system, what I
Yep.
had, what I needed to get. And I basically just made a list of what I think I needed to do that. And the things that I didn't have, I just bought and filled
Mm-hmm.
in the blanks, whether it was a cable or a coupler
Yep.
or a connector or a mixer or an extra phone or a cow's pad, a mic stand, floor
Okay.
stand, mini stand, boom. I'm like, what would I need? Like, I
Yeah.
just want to get out of the shower, and if I'm running, gunning, if I get a red carpet, or if I'm at home in the studio. So that's where I'm at now. I finally got all of those systems set up,
Nice.
turnkey, ready to go. So if I literally want to get up, jump in the shower, and schedule something every day, whether it's run and gun, a
Mm-hmm.
portable, or a studio thing, I can do it.
Yeah.
Set that up because out here in Los Angeles, and being a comedian and being in the business long enough for people to respect what I've done, I'm
Mm-hmm.
now starting to get calls for, hey, can you come cover this? Hey, can you come do that?
Oh,
Hey, can you come? And I've lost
brilliant.
those opportunities because I wasn't instantly turnkey ready to cover that.
Sure.
Instantly turnkey ready to stream. I thought I was, and then they
Yeah.
would call me, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I can't. The digital stream, I can't, like the microphone. I was like, oh man, I need a coupler for this. It's like, okay, let me get back to you. And it's like, we'll call you
Yeah.
later.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you'd be surprised the opportunities that you miss in seconds if you were not turnkey in seconds.
Mm-hmm.
I've had celebrities that, hey, I only have like 15 minutes. If you want to do something, you got me for 15 minutes. I'm like, I can't even figure out like where the
Yeah.
cable is for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah. I
like,
get
where's
that.
my microphone? Where's my thing? It's
Yeah.
like, oh man, it's like you got your glasses on your head. You're like, where my glasses even? I
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
find
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
glasses. So I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, all right, let me just take a step back
Yep.
and let me just make my system turnkey no matter what I have to do.
Yeah.
So if I get another one of those celebrity calls, or
Yep.
a CEO, or somebody that's an influencer, or somebody who is a legend, and they only have 10 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
I need to be like, no problem. I got my phone. I'll get into
Yeah.
StreamYard. I got mics. If this is all set up, ready to go, I'll plug in. If not, if we're at home in my studio, I can turn it on,
Mm-hmm.
plug in 3-cam. I can do a 3-camera shoot with your
Sure.
website on one channel and your camera on another, your phone, your social media, your Owwll app. I can like now go back and forth. We can let me know what you do. I can play your video, your demo, your website, whatever it is. Just send me the
all
link.
the
I'll
things.
pop them up, roll them in, and it's a killer show.
That's
so
nice.
that's where I'm at now. So the second part of your question, where do I want to go?
Yeah.
Now that I feel that I'm turnkey with my system, now I want to reach back out to a lot of those opportunities I missed and be like, hey,
and capitalize.
Can we do a round 2 of this? Because I think, it's like, okay, if I call you, I don't want to be waiting 10 minutes for you to like get your pin dialed in. It's like, all right, don't worry about it. I'll make sure
I'm good to go.
I'm good to go this time. We're good this time.
Yeah.
So now in that process, I want to now collect some of this A-list valuable type content that can level me up in my industry and in my profession, so that now when I want to produce a comedy show or a TV show or a podcast or a film, people are actually taking my calls, because when they go to vet and they see what I'm doing, they'll be like, oh, this guy's serious. Like, I already know what it takes to do what this guy is doing turnkey.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even have to see his stuff. I already, because we know, like you and I, we have the pain of editing and putting gear together and getting the microphones, and nobody else understands that.
It's a whole other world. Yeah.
It's a whole nother world.
Yeah.
So we can appreciate each other when it comes to that, and we have mad respect for each other, because we know what it takes. We know the commitment, the money. Like, you have to be very creative with, how much money you can put into this, and where you lack in money and resource, you got to make up in creativity.
Yes.
So we get it. We know.
Yeah.
So when I'm trying to level up, I want people to kind of who really get it. Go, okay, this is a guy we want to take a ride with.
Yep. Yeah. 100%. I want to circle back just a tiny bit about you said that you took the step back to get like the 30,000 foot view or whatever, and really decide how you want to set things up, and for somebody who's just starting a podcast, and that's who my listener is that person just kind of maybe getting into it, or they're into it a little bit and they're struggling or whatever it might be, take that step back, and understand that A needs to connect to B, needs to connect to C, to get your result of D, whatever that is, right? And and like in your situation, you took that step back and you're like, oh, I'm missing that coupler. Oh, I'm missing that splitter, whatever it is. I'm missing these little parts here to put this together as a package. So if you're just starting your podcast, or just trying to figure out where's this going wrong, and it's not just hardware either, it's the concepts, right? It's I need to do this to do this to do this. What are you missing a step in between somewhere where you're not getting that result that you need? So take the step back from it and think about it, meditate on it, ponder on it for a while, stop trying to force it or jam it down your throat. Just take a step back, take a breath, and see, okay, and maybe watch somebody or listen to somebody else who's doing something similar, and try to get that little nugget that, oh man, I didn't even think of that. Of course, that's how you do that. That makes total sense, So, and like listening to us talk back and forth, like you'll say things that, boy, I didn't even think of it that way, And same, like I think on when I was on your podcast, we talked about the checklist that I have that I send out to my clients, like, oh, that little checklist, just to make sure to check that off every time you do an episode, or you got a project going on, I got to do this, I got to do this, I got, and just to kind of keep that order.
Did you send me that checklist?
No, I did not.
Can you send it to me?
I will. Yeah.
I would love to. I love checklists. Checklists
I totally will. It's been a whirlwind since you and I talked last. All kinds of things going on and whatever, and went right to the back of my head. And I need a checklist for my checklist is what I need.
You need Post-it notes for your Post-it
Yes.
note
Yes.
for your checklist. That can find your checklist for your checklist.
100%. And then I need an app to keep track of all of it, right?
Exactly. But it's funny what you were saying, because I'm laughing inside. But a lot of this is, you take a 30,000 foot step back to kind of see what you might need, and you
Mhm.
put your checklist together, and sometimes you still miss it. So that's
Oh,
why
yeah.
be okay with discovering
Mhm.
those little glitches and those little trip ups along the way, because you want those so that oh, okay,
Yep.
that's never going to happen to me again.
Yes.
When you were saying that, it reminded me of, like, how funny it is when you're putting this stuff together. How do you know you're going to need a male XLR
Yeah.
that has a quarter inch? How would you know that unless you get
Un-
out here and you
until
put it together? You're like, oh
Yep.
man, how am I going to hook that with that?
Yep.
A male XLR splitter.
Yep. Yep.
How would you know? And
Yep.
then you go buy one because you're not thinking, and
Yep.
it's two males and a female. You're like, oh man, I needed a male to split the female, not the
Yep.
female to split the male. And it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
same thing. How do you know? It's like, oh man, I need a female to a mini.
Oh, that is one of the best cables ever.
This is such a lifesaver.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
I even got the
thing.
like mini extension.
Yep. Yep. The thing. Yep.
So
100%. Back in
it's like all of these can save your
yeah.
life, and you
Yes.
don't know it
Yes.
until you know it.
Yes.
So be okay to just dive into the deep end,
Mhm.
and trial by fire is a lot of them, because you can watch 1,000 YouTube videos, and you can watch and listen to people who do, and they're just going to glass over the tiny little microscopic connections that you need to make, because a lot of times they assume you already know about that.
Yes.
And
Yes.
then you go out and you get to this for that, and you go out and then you realize, oh man, it's like, are you kidding me? I need an RCA splitter to a quarter inch. Why didn't somebody tell me that?
Yeah. 100%. So you have to be fluid, right?
Yeah.
You can't be static. You can't be, it's this way, and with blinders on and all that. You have to be fluid to pivot to the thing, whatever that is. And when it happens,
Yeah.
and then you learn from that, right? And then
Yeah.
you address it, and then that doesn't happen again until the next time something happens, right? Because there's going to be a next time, right? It's not an if, it's a when, so you'll try to address everything, but you'll get to a shoot, or you'll bring your portable setup, and you'll get all set up, and you'll have that, why don't I have this USB to USB-C thing? Like, what was I thinking?
Right.
Whatever it might be, so it's all about learning, constantly learning,
Yeah.
constantly learning. And to think that you know everything all the time, that's a joke, my friend.
Yes.
That is a joke.
And let's say you do know everything and you do learn everything. You're going to get it. You're going to forget it in 15 minutes. So
100%. Yep. 100%.
Okay, I give it to you. You know everything, but you still forgot the mini XLR couplers.
Yes. 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 Yep.
Oh,
100%.
man.
100%. Well, I could talk, we could sit in here and talk shop for hours and stuff like that, but we're kind of coming to the end of the broadcast. So I really, really, really want to thank you for coming on and talking to me and having this chat back and forth, both about the Owwll app itself, and it's all week and all that, and then about podcasting, some shop talk, some nuts and bolts, getting into that sort of thing too. And it's always such a good time to do stuff like that. Where can people find you? Like, where do we?
You can find me, my comedy, my stand-up on PodBrother.com. You can find my live stream shows on PodBrother Nation. And if you want to learn how to do stand-up comedy, you can find me on pnnacademy.org. And if you download the Owwll app, which is owwll.com, you plug in my promo code, which is comedy. That's easy. And we both get $10. What's your promo code, by the way?
It's Connect.
Connect. I love that.
Yes.
That's what's
Yeah.
cool about being the early adapters. We get
Yes.
the cool promo names.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like all of those, once they're gone, once people figure out how to grab a promo code that matches their niche,
Yep.
it's gone forever. Your flag is in that dirt.
Yeah,
forever.
it is. It is.
And no matter who comes on, anybody who like plugs in Connect, that's going to be you. You
That's
get
me.
credit for that. Or
Yeah.
comedy.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
like I own the comedy real estate for the
Yes.
house.
You planted your flag.
Right there.
Yep. The PodBrother has the comedy keyword. So there you go. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for coming and hanging with me. And I had such a great time again talking, and we'll do this again, you know, because there's so much more, so much to say and so much to talk about. And there's
absolutely,
we'll do it again over and over again, probably. So again, thank you for jumping on and having the show with me. And I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful night.
Awesome. It was an honor being here. And anytime you want me to come back, I'm all in.
Awesome. Well, thank you, listener, because we're talking to the one listener at a time. Thank you, listener, for listening to this podcast, and we hope to catch you again next week.